some people are born with weaker elements genetically, which has been shown time and time again in tests, I believe. And those people tend to have more woke, not necessarily left-wing, like someone like Corbyn, who's a bit outside of that group, but woke leftist views, which I suppose could have been also the Bolsheviks back in the day, or the Stasi, or as you say, in a right-wing community, could be someone who's super right-wing. And I suppose we're debating over whether that's something about their genetic makes them uniquely woke, or if it's something about, hey, if you do have these issues, it makes sense that you would. Well, I suppose that is what you're saying. Really, are we saying the same thing? That if you have these issues that are genetic issues, and because of that, you float towards an extreme.
So the idea would be that you would have. With the collapse of Darwinian selection, what we were selecting for, from what we can work out, is obviously mental health, physical health, intelligence. So that's a bit of a complex point, and basically to be optimally conservative and religious. And that is to say that you're in a battle of group selection against other groups. We are pack animals, but we have to rise to the top of our pack because in prehistory, only about 40% of men passed on their genes, and so you have to have social status to get along. So we're evolved to want that. So you have these 5 moral foundations. You have the group-oriented foundations of sanctity, which to some extent is about keeping out foreign things and foreign novel pathogens and whatever. So it sanctifies that which is good for the group, and it taboos that which is bad for it. You have being loyal to your in-group, and you have obedience to authority.
These are really interesting points, by the way. Can I get you sort of just slow and just to explain, because I'm really interested in what you're saying about, because I'm fascinated by evolutionary biology as well, and I don't want you to skip past those bits.
All right, okay.
So sanctity.
So sanctity does correlate with the other group-oriented foundations. Is this slow enough?
Yes.
It does correlate with the other group-oriented foundations.
Yes.
I feel like I've had a stroke. And it's so a significant component of it would seem to be keeping out that which is bad for the group. And the example of that could potentially be foreigners, because they could carry novel pathogens that the group is not used to. And it tends to sanctify that which is good for the group, and it tends to taboo that which is bad for the group.
Okay.
Then you have in-group loyalty. That's obvious that you in computer models, the group that is high in positive and negative ethnocentrism tends to dominate the grid in computer models, as opposed to other permutations of that. Then you have obedience to authority, which is obviously useful ultimately in any military situation. And so those are the group-oriented moral foundations. This is Jonathan Haidt's idea.
Interesting.
And then you have the individually oriented ones, which is that you are in favor of equality, because if you're in favor of equality, then you, as an individual, particularly one that is low in the group hierarchy, will get proportionally more. And then you have harm avoidance, because obviously if you, as an individual, avoid harm, it's a selfish thing to want to do. And conservatives have been shown to be about equal in all 5 moral foundations, whereas liberals or left-wing people are very low in the group-oriented or binding foundations, and very high. I can't get used to talking this slowly. And very high.
It's really interesting. I can follow easy.
And very high in the individually oriented foundations.
I see.
And this has been replicated again and again and again. There are certain nuances to it, but that's basically it. Now, another thing that you find is a difference in your perceived moral circle. So people who are conservative identify, it's almost like the world is a series of concentric circles moving out from self. So they identify with their family over their kin over their ethnic group over their race over their species, and so on. That's not the case with left-wing people. They identify perhaps with a different social class over their own, a different ethnic group over their own, a different race over their own. Now, this, of course, means that you could argue that they're basically born traitors. It allows them to collaborate with outsiders and thus attain social status over their own group.
Right.
There are many examples of this. We're talking earlier to your Polish assistant, and in Eastern Europe you have a director, indeed. And in Eastern Europe you have this peasant culture where there was a sort of national awakening at various points based around lauding as the essence of the nation the culture of the peasant. A good example would be in Estonia. or Finland. Inevitably, the people that were in charge of that national awakening were not Estonians or Finns. No, they were members of the dominant ethnic group, the Baltic Germans or the Swedish-speaking Finns, who were upper class, but who collaborated with the other ethnic group to gain status over their own group. So that's an example. So a good example would be someone like George Galloway, who's Scottish, of course, but he identifies essentially with Palestinians and with other Muslims, and thus gains power over other British people via that form of collaboration. So this is the difference. Now, what this would mean if we had been selecting very strongly for this interrelated, pleiotripically related. So when things are selected for in evolution, they become bound together. So, for example, women sexually select for intelligence in men because they sexually select for socioeconomic status, and they select for height. The result is there is a weak correlation, genetic correlation, among men between height and intelligence. Now, taller men are on average a bit more intelligent.
Is that right?
Yes.
And I'm taller than you, but you're significantly more intelligent than me.
I don't know about that. Well, I don't know about the intelligence thing. I mean, you are about 5'11". But
I'm 6'4".
You're not 6'4".
Yes.
Are you?
How tall are you?
5'9", I thought. Well, I was last measured when I was 14.
Right.
I thought I was 5'9".
Yeah, I'm 6'4".
Are you?
Yeah.
God.
And it must be extremely intelligent.
Very bad for your heart.
Is it? For God's sake, don't tell me that. I'm obsessed.
The more for every inch over 5'8", the more likely you'd have a heart attack.
Oh, don't! I'm going to be. It's going to have me.
I'd watch out if I were you. In your 50s.
Oh, bloody hell!
Dying in traditional English fashion. Massive heart attack at 57 away from the pub.
Oh my God! I need some water.
Conked out.
This is scary. Wait, I want to just talk about some of the things you've said. Okay, so firstly, I suppose there are some countries such as Argentina, I know, where the nationalists are leftist. The left is very nationalistic about themselves, so they would be keeping out other people, right? There's a lot of countries where the left is the nationalistic side, and the right is not. The right wants to branch out and open to.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, let's look at that. But if you don't mind, let me just finish my point.
Sure,
which was that.
I'm going to have a heart attack.
Oh, well, no. We should get a bit of paper ready and make notes in case we lose our train of thought.
Yes.
But so this means that what we were basically selecting for was conservatism. And that's as defined in the way I just did.
Tall. You said last thing you said was tall and
I
intelligence.
was just telling you about pleiotropic relationships.
I'm just trying to see how you get to
relationships. So conservatism is therefore associated with genetic health, mental health, physical health, whatever, right? So that's what we were selecting for, essentially that mode of thinking. And we were under very harsh selection. So that means that once that selection collapses from 50% child mortality to 1%, then there's going to be a huge buildup of mutation in the direction of against that. That's not to say that you're not going to get right-wing people that are high mutation. You probably are. For example, I don't know, people that are schizophrenic and into conspiracy theories, or psychopathic.
Incels,
exactly. But in general, the direction is going to be, the mutation will be associated with deviation from what we were selecting for, which is basically a sort of fitness factor, including in which is conservatism, with the result that you would expect left-wing views, i.e. being individually oriented rather than group-oriented, i.e. being left-wing, to be associated with a high mutational load. And eventually, the society would they would reach a tipping point. It's been argued that 20% is a tipping point in groups when it's seen that the new up-and-coming worldview is the in thing, and then people start to very quickly tip over to the new view, particularly among the more intelligent, because intelligent people are good at norm mapping and forcing themselves via effortful control to believe in the dominant set of values. And then tip over into left-wing values. Now, once that happens, then it starts to get interesting. You get runaway leftism, not least because there is an asymmetrical empathy. People that are conservative can sympathize with left-wing people because they are into equality and harm avoidance as well. But left-wing people cannot sympathize with right-wing people. So you then get runaway liberalism, runaway leftism, until it reaches absolute chaos, until ordinary people feel threatened, and then you get a backlash, as perhaps we are seeing now with regards to trans issues and so on. And on it moves, and more and more, and it becomes more and more extreme, and more. It gets to a point, perhaps even where it's like maladaptive. So where we shouldn't have children in order to signal our virtue or whatever. And then it's going to be the people that are the highest in mutational load that are going to be sucked into that first. And as it carries on, more and more people will be sucked in, and it will only be those that are genetically resistant to it that will be likely to resist it. Which is why that when we look at who is having children, it's two groups of people: the low IQ, that those people are bad at norm mapping, they are bad at effortful control, they don't imbibe the dominant culture very well. So in a right-wing society, the people that were like a conservative Victorian England, it was the people that were of low intelligence that were the least sexually puritanical, that were the least, in many ways, the least right-wing.
Yeah.
And then we have the opposite in many ways today. So that's why being working class or whatever is associated with voting for Brexit and that sort of thing. And so them. And then on the other hand, it's if you control for intelligence, it's just religious people and conservatives that are passing on their genes. So this becomes a selection event. Wokeness becomes a selection event whereby, in a way, the gene pool is purified of mutant genes.
Do we then have to be careful about framing this? I mean, I do a lot about woke culture because it drives me mad, and I think it does you as well. But framing this as a woke issue, and I think, am I right in saying what you're saying really is, by woke in this instance, is in any given society, people who unthinkingly go towards what is the mainstream idea or the popular idea of the moment. So with the Nazis, it would have been Nazism, for example, and right now it's this woke stuff. Those are the people who tend to have these genetic issues.
No. At the extreme leftists,
yeah,
people like Andrea Dworkin,
don't know,
ugly feminist philosopher,
right?
Very high mutational load.
Yeah,
not going to pass on their genes. Very high mental instability. And if those people are quite intelligent, which can happen,
yes,
then of course they're going to lead the society in an anti-hierarchical, anti-establishment, anti-conservative direction. They're going to alter the discourse and suck in other people. And often the ones that will be lower in mutational load will be more resistant to being sucked in. Now, you might then get some people who are perfectly genetically healthy, but are high in, let's just conformism, let's say.
Yeah.
And they, even though they are quite healthy, will be sucked in. But I would suggest that if they were sufficiently genetically healthy, that conformism would be counteracted by certain conservative instincts. And so they would be perhaps less likely to be sucked in. In that sense, only the normal pre-industrial population, those kinds of people, the descendants, those people would survive an environment which is pushing them along a maladaptive roadmap of life and telling them to not have children and so forth. It would only be the genetically very healthy that would survive that, and they would be very likely to be right-wing and conservative, and to varying degrees others would be sucked in. But you can, of course, get people that are relatively genetically healthy, like Justin Trudeau or whatever, but who have narcissistic traits. And even in a society like the Society of 1800, you're going to have some people like that.
Yeah.
Because you need to have genes like that in the population, not least to produce genius.
Yes.
Or indeed to produce people that will lay down their life for the society. It's been shown that the kind of people that are prepared to lay down their life for die in battle are high in psychopathic traits.
Yes.
So you do need some people like the optimum small number. So you're going to get some people that are healthy but are highly socially conformist, let's say, and who will be sort of Adam Rutherford types.
Okay.
So you're going to get people like that. But broadly, what you can see wokeness as a sort of angel of death that has to happen in a society where there is essentially really, really relaxed selection pressures. So everyone is increasingly genetically unhealthy. Now, if that goes on forever, then you get to a point where next time some massive volcano goes off, of the kind that ended the Bronze Age, or of the kind that ended, or the climate change that ended the Iron Age collapse, or whatever, then everyone's so unhealthy that we all die out. But the only people that are left are the Andaman Islanders, or people that aren't on the grid because the whole of civilization collapses. But no, this means that we're going to move back potentially towards being healthy. So I see it almost as an adaptation. And I wonder, there hasn't been much of a development of wokeness in East Asia. They're just dying off. And I wonder if that's because their gene pool is very small and they don't produce much per capita genius. I've done a study on this with my Japanese colleague, Kenya Kura. They don't produce much per capita genius. Why? Because their intelligence, although they are more intelligent than European people, they have smaller gene pool. The intelligence range is narrower. They have very low levels of psychopathology. They don't have many geniuses, therefore, or many people are very low criminal types. And I wonder if they don't produce wokeness. It's not something that they can manifest because their gene pool is just not big enough. And so they perhaps die off. It's an interesting possibility.